was the savage return blow. Mitchell was no weasel or wimp. He was clearly used to boxing. It unnerved Malcolm because he had sized up the kid and assumed that after one punch he would fall down like a sack of shit. Being a lump himself, he had won more fights than he'd lost, but he'd seriously underestimated the speed of Mitchell's reaction. Mitchell glanced back at the man in the photo, the man he hated more than anyone, and something inside him snapped. He threw a fast punch that hit Malcolm so hard on the chin that it instantly floored him. As soon as Malcolm slid awkwardly between the two beds, Mitchell kicked the door shut. He jumped on top of the man, gripping his slippery bald head, and rammed it onto the floor. The crunch of the man's skull echoed as it hit the concrete. But Mitchell was still raging. The pent-up frustration from so many wrongdoings in his life had fueled an anger that was now being aimed at the man on the floor. And the big bully, who attacked him for no reason whatsoever, was getting it. Again and again, Mitchell lifted the man's head by his ears and smashed it on the floor. A spray of blood shot from Malcolm's nose and covered his own face. Only then did Mitchell stop and look at the damage he'd caused. Malcolm's ear was ripped away from his head, and blood continued to pour from his nose. Bernie was still outside. He hadn't been quick enough to keep the door open. Hearing the violent thuds, he panicked and began smashing and kicking the door for Mitchell to open up. Mitchell was shaking, his knuckles throbbed, and his body was now covered in sweat. Taking deep breaths, he climbed off the lifeless man and paused to gain his sanity before he opened the door. Red-eyed, he glared at Bernie. "Get your bulldog out of my cell!" Bernie glanced down at the mess, and his eyes nearly popped out of his head. "You fucking cunt!" he yelled, before attempting to throw a punch himself. But Mitchell stepped back and dared Bernie with a sharp, firm nod. "Do it, Bernie, and believe me, you will end up worse than him, because I won't stop. I will finish you off. Now, you either listen to my side of the story, or you fuck off and stay away." Bernie was shocked. He'd only known Mitchell to be a reticent man, but seeing the result of Malcolm being battered, and so viciously, proved to be a useful lesson for him. Never judge a book by its cover. He put his hands by his side and glanced back at Malcolm. "Right, Mitch, we'll talk, and then you can tell me where the fucking money is." Mitchell shook his head. "No, I will talk, and you will listen." Malcolm stirred and tried to get to his feet, but he was punch-drunk. "All right, help me get him up and out of here, then." Mitchell sighed. "Bollocks. You unleashed your guard dog. Now you can get him out of my cell. And tell him I want him back here later to mop the blood off my floor." Bernie wasn't listening. He wanted to help his long-term pal out of the cell and onto the landing, where the screws would take him to the hospital wing. Holding Malcolm as upright as he could, he supported him along the landing to the foot of the stairs. The screws were at the other end and not taking much notice, until Bernie shouted for one of them to see to his mate, who, he said, had taken a tumble down the stairs, before he marched back to Mitchell's cell. "So, 'cause you brutalised me, pal, you now think you're some kind of hard bastard, do you?" Mitchell shook his head. "In case, Bernie, you haven't grasped the type of man I am, I will tell you. I was never a criminal, a villain, or a bank robber. I only ever threw punches in the ring, and I never fought on the street. So I couldn't give a monkey's uncle who's hard or who's a name, a face, or a fucking cock-sucking Joey. I'm just a bloke who ended up in here because your mate, my father-in-law, grassed me up." Bernie was still standing where Mitchell sat on the bed. There was silence as Bernie processed exactly what Mitchell was saying. He raised his eyebrow and sat down opposite. "OK, Mitch. Man to man, no fucking nonsense. What the fuck do you mean when you said he grassed you up?" "You tell me, Bernie. Unless it was you." He sighed. "I dunno. Something tells me it wouldn't have been you, though." Bernie's eyes widened. "Me, a grass?" he replied, totally offended. "Never." "Well, Bernie, between you, Donald and Trevor, one of you grassed me up, 'cause why the hell would the old Bill pull me in on a fucking armed robbery?" Bernie stared for a while, and then curled his lip. "Mitch, you drove the fucking van when the filth gave chase. When the cops blocked Trevor and me in the back, you did a runner, right?" Mitchell was nodding in agreement with the facts. "Well, you fuck..."